Have you ever wondered how herbalism can play a role in coping with sexual trauma? Or how altering our states of consciousness might lead us to new levels of healing and understanding? In today's episode of Soul Desire, I dive into a fascinating conversation with the incredible Hanna Livengood. As a clinical herbalist and sexologist, Hanna's all about bridging gaps and turning societal taboos into bridges of growth and connection. She shares her unique insights on using herbalism and altered state to empower and transform our lives. It's an exciting journey you won't want to miss, I promise you. It's going to be full of wisdom, love, and new perspectives. So, tune in and join for our conversation that promises to challenge the norms and inspire change.
This is your space, your sacred time. Soul desire ignites with every rhyme. Feel the balance, let your spirit soar. In this moment, find what you're looking for.
Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Desire. For anyone who's new here, I'm Rebecca, your host, and I'm so happy to have you join us today. To all my regular listeners, welcome back, my loves. You're in for something truly special. Today, I had the pleasure of chatting with the amazing Hanna Livengood. She's a clinical herbalist, sexologist, and altered state enthusiast who's all about connection, empowering, and witnessing. Hanna is such a warm-hearted and wise soul with so much love to offer. She's shaking things up by turning societal taboos into opportunities for connection rather than division. In our conversation, Hanna opens up about herbalism, altered state, and dealing with sexual trauma. Topics that often stay hidden in the shadows but need to be talked about. She's like a curse breaker, giving a voice to those who can't speak up for themselves. Hanna also explores the world of botanical bar crafts and finds new ways to expand her consciousness while staying grounded. At the heart of her work is love and connection, broadening how we see intimacy and relationships. So join us as we dive into this insightful chat. It's all about slaying shame, expanding our minds, and planting the seed for more connected life. You won't want to miss this one, my loves. Hi, Hanna. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so incredibly happy to have you and to share some of your wisdom today.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me on.
You're really, really welcome. I just said before I hit record actually that I was dying to ask you a million questions because you have so many interesting topics and you're such a beautiful person and soul. So I'm really curious.
Yeah, there's so many things that I'm interested in. So I think that's been a very kind of double-edged sword my whole life. I've had so many people wanting to tell me to focus on one thing. And maybe at another point I will, but right now I've narrowed it down to like all the things that I'm most passionate about and weave them together because to me they just fit so seamlessly.
Mhm.
So it's really fun when I tell people what I do and they're like that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, oh, but it does.
I love this. I know people always say like you have to focus on something, but why? Spirit
Mhm.
gave you all of this. So it's connected. It's supposed to be like this. If you would have to choose something, you wouldn't have all of this given. So it's something special actually. And you will see it's all connected.
Absolutely.
So will you tell people what you're doing?
Yes. So my name is Hanna Livengood. I am the herbal hedonist and I weave together pleasure and experience and then this holistic mindset that I've received. So it's almost tantric in nature, how we can dive into being a human and experience heightened senses, while also keeping a balanced mindset and allowing ourselves to tap into the subtle energy instead of always going to the extremes, but allowing ourselves to play in the extremes. So I explore sexuality, intimacy, and relationships. I explore substances, plant medicine, and I explore a connection to spirit and spiritual practices.
Wow. See, I didn't promise the listeners too much because you have really a lot, so many interesting topics and a variety of it. So, how does all of this connect? Because it feels like it's from every part a little bit, but somehow it fits all together.
Mhm. Absolutely, yes. It's the way that I weave them together is through just one core word, which is connection. We have in sexuality, intimacy, and relationships, we're looking to connect with ourselves or to another. Within the realm of substances, I often feel like we're looking for connection to source or connection to ourself, something larger. There's still connection available. And then within the realm of spirits, of course, trying to connect to our ancestry and to our future selves, to our higher selves, and to source as a whole. So to me, they have also had these almost taboo topics
Mhm.
as sexuality and substances, particularly, then pushed to the fringes. Um, but trying to weave them back into this connection that we have with spirit, with source, is my goal. And teaching people how to love their bodies, interact with their bodies, um, how to put plant medicine in their bodies, to engage with it in a nuanced way, to get to the heart of what they really desire, and working with people one on one to discover what that is for each individual.
That's beautiful. You said before it's a tantric approach, and this is true. Tantra is basically the word for connection. And I feel like connection is the thing every human wants and desires and thrives on. We need connection. And yes, definitely, Tantra was something in a lot of people's eyes, which is a taboo because it's sexual. But what people are missing is it's not a negative thing because this is part of humanity and this is something pleasurable, something which is you can only be your authentic self once you accept everything about you, your desires and your values, yourself. So I think this is such an important and valuable lesson you're teaching people.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. I think um, you spoke to the ways in which Tantra has been kind of like looked at as just a sexual
Mhm.
experience or this sexual practice. And it is absolutely that. And it is so much more. It's seeing the spiritual in all of the things that we don't like, all the things we don't want to look at. And when I was growing up, my personal experience was I went through sexual abuse and I then used substances as a way to cope. And it took many years to find some semblance of balance.
Yeah.
And I studied history. So I was studying all of this religious text and really searching for meaning and searching to understand myself and why the pain that I felt was so heavy. And I realized that this the sexual desires and my substance use and this connection to spirit, they were all like interwoven, and that there's actually a lot of beauty in the pain because it took me to these really heightened pleasurable states of me knowing myself on deeper levels. But I had to go down to go up, and such is the wounded healer experience.
Wow, this is so powerful. Thank you for sharing this. A lot of people, this is a topic they don't want to talk about. This is something they don't want people to know about them because it's a part where they feel ashamed of. And I really love that you took this from a standpoint where you say, this empowered me and this let me grow and I needed to go through this. This makes you a really resilient and strong person.
Mm.
It's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
Resiliency, it's such a beautiful word all on its own, the way that we all experience things. And I think each individual has their own resilience, their own unique power, and their own unique story. And I just want to reflect back to everyone that they have that within themselves and to see that. And that was my own experience. I would sit out by the river and just question my life, wonder how I got to where I was. I was drinking and doing lots of drugs. I was hooked on some pills for a while and would wake up in the beds of strangers and have this dichotomy of feeling freedom and liberated to experience these altered states and to reclaim my pleasure in the ways that I was. And also, it felt so out of alignment for so long, but I felt really confused. So I would sit on this one particular rock at the river and just contemplate my own self-worth and my own path. And I remember very vividly the day that this clicked, looking around and looking at all the trees and the way that the wind blew through them and ruffled the leaves and the way the light reflected off the water. And I just thought, wow, this place is so beautiful. And spirit just gave me the inkling in that moment that I was the same as the trees and the water and the rocks. I was that beautiful and I was worth loving and I was worth experiencing myself in all of the dynamic ways that is possible. I can be the soft, gentle breeze and I can be the windstorm. And all of it is beautiful and perfect. And so yeah, that's just one of the biggest goals of my life is to just allow people to see that in themselves and learn that for themselves, that they are resilient, they are powerful. And no matter the way that they want to live their life, it's absolutely beautiful.
Hey, love. Have I ever shared with you how my journey to my dream life began? I still remember the frustration I felt, honestly. I had such a vivid vision of how my life was supposed to be, but I kept encountering these blockages. I honestly tried everything, from shadow work to energetic clearings, inner child sessions, ancestral healing, and even manifestation classes. Yet, nothing seemed to change. My dream life felt so out of reach that I almost convinced myself I wasn't worthy of it. But let me assure you, my love, that's so far from the truth. You are worthy and deserving of everything you desire. Your soul chose this life, and I'm here to help you break free from anything that's holding you back. No matter how hidden the limiting beliefs are or how ingrained the blockages are in the fabric of your energetic body, I will find and remove them so you can claim your birthright of abundance. Because honestly, the world needs the unique light only you can shine. So visit the link in the show notes to enroll now or to learn more about my services. I love you and enjoy the rest of the episode. Oh, I love this. Thank you. This resonated deeply with me. And I think with a lot of listeners too, because you talk to their soul right now. And a lot of people need to know this. I always say the darkest moments in our life usually have the clearest light in there. You need to just open your eyes for them. It's something is there hidden. It's a gift. Spirit would never send you down this road if you didn't need to experience to come up more resilient, better, and you grow from this. It's such a valuable lesson, and we usually feel like in this moment we lose track of our path and we maybe fall into a hole, and we all been to one degree in this. But the question is, what do you do with this? It's an opportunity. It's hard to see, and people will probably disagree with me right now when they're in this moment, but it's always an opportunity to grow.
And I've been blessed with a beautiful experience, and maybe also blessed with a maybe sometimes a little too much self-awareness. It's not easy being self-aware, but I would choose it every day to allow myself to get to those dark places, wondering why things are the way they are, and then moments later to realize like this is perfect how it is.
Yes, it is. So you went through this negative experience and you discovered that the connection were missing for you. You felt disconnected from yourself, disconnected to everything. So right now you're helping people with plants and with altered states to find the connection back to them.
Yeah, it's one of the pieces of my work that most excites me right now. I've worked a lot in the sexuality sphere, doing like aphrodisiac workshops and education, teaching people how to tune into their bodies in that realm. And I've added this new piece. And there's actually going to be a workshop coming out in January called Altered, where we learn about plant medicines that can be alternatives to your common drugs that we might use. So things like alcohol or um, ketamine, benzodiazepines, things of this nature. We can substitute plants for an experience that can still open us and allow us to experience maybe some of the things that we're desiring from reaching these for these other substances. But also allowing us to maybe feel a little bit more aligned, a little more tuned in, and also keeping us building this connection with our bodies, minds, and souls, because sometimes these other substances that we're taking a hold of, I think alcohol is very easy to talk about because it's legal most everywhere and very accessible. Um, Sometimes alcohol can take us too far out of our body. And I don't demonize alcohol. I actually don't demonize any substance. My perspective is that the poison's in the dose. So, when you work with it in an incremental way, it can be really beautiful and very expansive. And sometimes if you take too much poison, it can be kind of deadly. So, trying to find a rhythm with your own body and educate people on like what those boundaries are for them as an individual. But there's also other options that we don't know as much about, like kava. Kava is this beautiful root plant. It also has this sedative effect, much like alcohol. And my experience with it is after one cup, and similar to one glass of wine, I get a little sleepy. I could definitely take a nap. But after having 2 or 3 cups of kava, I kind of like ride this high, much like you would after a couple drinks, and then drops off again. And then I can sleep really well. And I wake up the next day without a hangover. So it's a very similar experience. It alters your motor function very slightly. So you can still drive, but still have that loose experience as you would with alcohol. And there's amazing plant allies out there that act just like this, kind of mirroring the substances that we use in our day to day. And often these substances that we are leaning towards are also plant extracts. So we're just getting to the root of the plant, and the plants come with all of these other constituents, all of these other biological markers that are incorporated into it. As when you take the whole plant, you're getting all of those constituents that help to balance the body out and like, balance the experience out. Whereas when you extract it and put that constituent into a pill, it can be very potent medicine, but you're not getting the full breadth of the plant the way that Earth intended it to be imbibed. So that's kind of what Altered is going to be about. And I'm really excited about it because it's kind of a new layer of connection. And I often think that when it comes to sexuality and intimacy and relationships as a whole, a lot of my personal experience and a lot of experience that I see in Western culture is people leaning on substances to connect with others, to break down the social anxiety and those awkward social barriers, loosen up a little bit. So I fully understand that and want to promote another way of connecting.
Beautiful. Yes. This makes so much sense. And especially alcohol is usually used for either or. It's never, people are not just drinking alcohol because they want to, because they like the taste. It's never about rarely. I don't want to say never, rarely. It's about rarely the taste. But usually it's covering up the real root issue. It's either I need this, so I'm loosening up, so I have the confidence in myself, or I need this to cover something I don't want to think about. And in any way, it doesn't matter if you substitute it or if you use a substitute for it, you get this effect, but you can think clearly and you start to look inward without just numbing your body. And that's beautiful to show people a different perspective, a different way.
Yes, I think there's something to just tune into, especially around alcohol or any substance use. We see this a lot now being promoted in the non-alcoholic beverage industry. But this mindfulness around what we're putting in our bodies, just like anything else. I began doing a sober month, I think it was like 7 years ago. It was the first time I was like, okay, we're going to do dry January and see how this goes. And I've learned so much around the moments that I've taken step backs from sobriety. I now do it about twice a year. And I always am more mindful when I come back to substances. Am I using this because I want to connect? Am I using this because I'm feeling a little awkward in my body? Am I using this because, like you said, I'm trying to escape something? And just having the awareness around it helps to heal whatever's going on, whatever that pattern is. And also bringing a lot more compassion and a lot less shame to the table when it comes to substances. There's so much going on in the world, so much going on in our lives. It can be difficult to want to stay here fully, fully in our bodies, fully in this awareness. And so I don't ever want to shame or bring guilt to anybody who's using whatever their substance of choice is. Rather, it's more just bringing a bit more mindfulness to it and allowing us to notice what our experience is. And today, sometimes I might have a drink and be like, oh, I definitely want to cover something up today. And sometimes I'll say, is that okay? Is that what we want to do today? And I'll say yes, or I'll say no and choose not to drink. But it's really about having the power of ourselves to be aware, fully aware to the choices that we're making. And
Yes.
I think that's kind of the most important thing when it comes to the way that we indulge, even in our pleasure practices, or whether we're, buying that nice purse or coat that we've been wanting. It's allowing ourselves to have those hedonistic joys, but just being mindful, being aware of the practice that we have around it.
So true. Because, yes, you're right. We don't want to shame anybody for overusing alcohol or drugs because honestly, we all do cover up something in one or the other way. Some people go shopping. Some people just ignore it and pretend everything is fine. We all have our own kind of methods. But in the end, we're all covering up. So there shouldn't be shame around this. Neither shame about sexuality, because I feel like in everything we do, there's a healthy method and there's an unhealthy way. So if you do it in good amounts, it's okay. If you overindulge in it, it's not healthy. It's with food, it's with shopping, with sex, with drugs, with alcohol, with everything. Even if you're over perfectionist, it's not healthy. So it doesn't matter. I think everything is just equal. There's no value in anything. We give it value by the quantity we indulge in it. And this is such an important part to think, because then you can get rid of all these labels and the stigma and the negativity about something, which is just covering up what it actually is. Sex on its own is amazing. If you overindulge or if you misuse this, then it's not. And so this is a really wonderful part. And I'm really happy that you actually touched up on this, because a lot of people have still this wrong thoughts around topics. And I come across a lot of women who think sex or sexual activities are negative and they feel shame for this. And this feeling of shame is still so much part of so many lives, while it shouldn't be.
Mm. Yeah, I love you've touched on so many beautiful things. You wove in the topic of like a spiritual practice into overindulgence, and which I think is so key to realize that even your health foods, or the perfectionism of going into the gym, the meditation practice, all of these things, beautiful, healthy things, can also be overindulged in. They can be used as a coping mechanism to the extreme, and so just maintaining awareness of it. And yeah, I think this part about shame, it's so pervasive in society, because really we're getting, especially around sexuality, it's only been in the last 50 years that we've been able to kind of begin to separate the threads of religion and sex and body autonomy. And that's not that long ago. And we
Yeah.
see a lot of pendulum swings from one ideal. I think about, we had um, the 1950s, very prim and proper, and men are men and women are women. And then we saw the repercussions of that, the pendulum swing in the 60s and 70s to the free love, free sex,
Mhm.
this hippie counterculture. And now I feel like we're kind of seeing this pendulum swing back into traditional family values, a resurgence of these ideologies around that are a little more conservative. And there's they're all beautiful. It's all appropriate, and each individual gets to choose like what most fits them. But I'm looking forward to the pendulum stopping going from extreme to extreme, where it settles somewhere more in the middle, where it's just accepting of each individual and how they want to live their lives without the shame and the guilt that's added on by society, because it's so much we're already doing so much. We don't really need it from our loved ones or from the internal dialogue that we have with ourselves. So yeah, I think the more that we can normalize these kinds of conversations that you and I are having, the more that it's okay for us to just be who we are and realize that even those things that we don't really love about ourselves, even the things that we overindulge in or the patterns that we continue to play out that seem old and tired, eventually without the shame and just the awareness, they have less of a hold on us. They
Mhm.
become more easeful and eventually they become something of the past. So, yeah, this conversation in and of itself is healing for an old version of me.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, it resonates with me as well because we had similar experiences. It's you said something and this resonates really deeply with me because I feel like understanding is power. When you understand why you do something, you ultimately can change it. You can decide, like you said, do I feel really like I need a drink today? Or do I am I fine to just skip on this? And this is you understand why you need it and if you really need it or not, because now you're in the position to actually choose. You flipped the cards basically. You decided if you want it or not, if you're in power, if you do have to do it or not. This is so powerful. And when you actually aware why you need something, then you can actually decide if this comes from yourself or is it part of society. Because basically we get a lot of societal pressure, which bring us to the point where we have to grab a drink or go smoke or take drugs or whatever, go shopping extensively. It's it's really the society pressure. And when you know, I don't want to be pressured anymore because I'm gay or because I'm I'm dating somebody who's way older than me or way younger. I recently had this situation with a family member, and this is not really fitting in here, but it somehow still does because they were thinking there was a girl who was way older. Well, she was a woman, probably she was in her 50s, and she was dating somebody in maybe their 30s. And it was like, how can she? And I was like, wait a minute. If it would be flipped, it's totally fine. Society says it's fine. But if a woman is older, we get shamed for dating somebody younger. And I think these are all these layers, and especially women or transgender, gay, lesbians, they get all this pressure from fitting into a norm. And this is, I think, a lot of reasons why people feel ashamed for how they are. They start to neglect who they are. They move away from this and they numb the pain.
Mm. Yeah, I think it makes so much sense. I think there's uh, boxes that we've been taught to fit into, and it feels good on some level to fit into a box. Our
Mhm.
brains want to put things in boxes so
Yeah.
we can organize. Um, a messy room doesn't feel as good as a clean room. And so, and then other people can understand it. It's what I do for my work is very broad and has many components. And when somebody asks me what I do, as I can say, I'm an herbalist or I'm an intimacy coach, but that doesn't really encapsulate everything that I am or everything that I do, but it helps the other person to understand a little bit. And so these boxes, these labels are really just here for us to try to build connection. And when we realize that we can connect on many different levels, we just remove our perception of like what somebody else should be and just allow them to be whomever they are, then the world gets so much more expansive, even for us, because I get to experience you in this new way that I would never experience Rebecca as before had I put you into a box. And I think that what you said about having the understanding and having knowledge is super powerful. When we understand society and the way that it works, we can kind of reclaim our power in a way. When we understand that there are other tools for coping, and when we understand what we're actually looking to get out of an experience, then we have more knowledge on how to act on it. So if I understand that in this moment, I just want something, a really yummy drink, no matter what that is, I can make a really yummy mocktail or get some
True.
juice. I love juice. Or if I can understand that, oh, in this moment, I am looking for a quick hit of dopamine because it's been a really hard day and I would just love a little pick me up, then I can reach for lemon balm, who works on the GABA receptors in the brain, and have some really yummy lemon balm tea or make a really yummy lemon balm mocktail. Or if I'm like, that was delicious, but I want something heavier, then I can reach for a stronger plant, or maybe then I choose to drink some alcohol. It's just all about knowing what options I have available to me. And I think we don't understand internally, like what we really need in the moment because we're disconnected from our bodies and our minds. And then we also don't have the tools necessary to provide what we need.
Mhm.
So, say I need the dopamine hit. Well, I know that shopping or, going to do a really hard run or going to go get a drink with a friend, like all of these things will give me what I'm looking for. Um, but I don't have time to do the workout, or I don't have time to grab the drink with my friends. So I'm going to drink alone, or, all of these
Yeah.
possibilities. When we have the tools of like, oh, I can do breath work, or I can drink this tea, or I can work with this plant in this way. It's just more tools in our toolbox that we can so we can access what it is that we really need in the moment.
So true. It's basically when you ever been on a diet and you have your fridge just stored with junk food, what do you do? Yes, there's a cucumber in there and some pepper, but you don't just start to do your salad. You grab the easy way because it's there. I think this is so important because the tea sounds amazing, but the other thing is so much easier because you can buy it everywhere and it's prefixed, it's done, and
Mhm.
it's it's hard to make the right choice when you're surrounded by the bad choices. And I think this is basically, there it comes to the choice again. You have to make a choice for yourself and you have to make it easy on you. Start to prepare beforehand, before the situation actually happens. Start to prepare everything so you have it easy. So once the choice comes up, it's an easy choice for you.
I love that. I think that's an amazing idea. Having kind of like a botanical bar ready for you to go after you've learned about your plants. Yeah, brewing the tea in the morning and just letting it be there, or having a hot thermos of it throughout the day. Just preparing yourself if you know, okay, it's Thursday night, it's Thirsty Thursday, gonna go get my drink. What other options are there? And I really have been very impressed with the shifts that I've seen in some of the younger generations, like they don't really drink alcohol as much. So there's been a shift, at least in the area that I'm in, with a lot of THC options and a lot of mocktails on the menu. So I love to see that. But I also know that sometimes there have been times I'm reaching for substances just because I want the experience of being altered, because being altered is fun all on its own. Even, it's not about covering something up always, which is true that exists.
Mhm.
And sometimes I just want to experience a different experience because my capacity to experience, spirit and all of the different dimensions is very broad. All of our capacities to experience that is attainable. And so having the kava or another plant that people love to work with, which I think is a bit controversial, is kratom. Having kratom there is, it's it's another potential, it's another possibility for me to expand myself. I love working with plant medicine, like mushrooms. Psychedelic mushrooms are so much fun. I don't work with them as much now, but I have loved them in the past. To really tune into the different aspects of self and process my own trauma. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend people doing that on their own. But there's a large capacity for us to experience. And I think sometimes we just want to experience the other possibilities. So giving us more tools in our toolbox to do that in ways that feel comfortable, because I know a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing psychedelics or don't feel comfortable smoking THC or don't want anything to show up on like a drug test. So other tools that can get us to these kind of altered states. I have this smoke blend that I make that I love. It's blue lotus, mugwort, lavender, and catnip. And
Catnip.
yes, catnip. The lavender and the catnip provide this really grounding, kind of like anti-anxiety effect. And then the mugwort and blue lotus really are these mind expanding plants, not psychoactive or psychedelic, but just enough to kind of expand the consciousness. And blue lotus is beautiful, beautiful plant. The ancient Egyptians worshipped this plant. You'll find it all in within the tombs of all the royals. So this plant medicine has been working for a really long time. And this particular combination I have found really opens me up without taking me too far. Sometimes THC cannabis can make me too far outside my body. So finding that happy medium has been a really beautiful experience for me as I traverse kind of the plant kingdom and try to find things that open me up without going too far.
Yeah,
Providing a safe container to explore my mind.
it's beautiful. Do you experience that you're spiritually more connected or you are more awaken when you use substitutes for alcohol or like for marijuana, for example?
It really depends on what my body and my mind are doing at the time. I can get into really meditative states and connect much more easily with the Akashic records or light beings. But I also sometimes it's just an internal experience of processing, what's been going on throughout the day, or processing something that happened a couple weeks ago that's still like too unaware. I didn't know that it was still here, but it is. And that's what, if you look at research on psychedelics, there's a lot of ketamine therapy, MDMA therapy going on right now. And when our brain is in these kind of heightened states, it's actually working at quadruple its normal capacity. So that's why sometimes if you're on a psychedelic, you start one sentence, but end a sentence that's like the end of a paragraph and you miss everything in the middle. It's because your brain's processing so much at that time. So if you are asking yourself, like, should I eat a sandwich? You've already made it through the processing and are making the sandwich like within 2 seconds. Um, and so on these other substances, this other plant medicine, it's acting similarly, but on a much more subtle level. So instead of working at 4 times the speed, or maybe working at like 1 or 2 times the speed,
Mhm.
um, but it's much more gentle, and it just allows me to like really tap into my energy, kind of move everything out of the way that I don't want here anymore. And then, you know, carry on. So yeah, it provides this expansive capacity, but not to the point that feels like I've gone too far. I can still be in public, I can still engage with you, um, and feel much better doing it, because I have social anxiety. So it allows me to just kind of like, remove those barriers, um, without indulging in something that I might wake up from tomorrow and feel regret.
No, this is amazing. I think it's wonderful because you're opening the door for so many people who are maybe overwhelmed with their feelings, overwhelmed with their thoughts, overwhelmed with the situation they're in, a trauma, something that's keeping them imprisoned. And you open the door for them. You let them have a normal, whatever normal means, a life. It's something they experience life how they're supposed to experience it. You free them up, and this is really an awesome way. It's amazing, especially because plant medicine is in general healthier than other substances. Like there are chemical drugs which are really harmful to your body, while plant medicine is not. It's maybe even good for you.
Mhm. Yes, our bodies can process it a much more easily than, as you said, like the chemical extracts and the chemical compounds, which do a lot of damage to our livers and kidneys and to other aspects of our bodies. So it feels like such a blessing to be able to share this knowledge and wisdom that I've accumulated with others and with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Will you let people know where they can find you?
Absolutely. So, my social platform is on Instagram at the.herbalhedonist. You can find me at my website, herbalhedonism.com. You can shoot me an email over there. I would love to get all of you signed up on the newsletter I send out monthly. And like I said, Altered will be coming out in January. So if you're one of those dry January people, you're curious, or if you're just curious about learning about plant medicine and alternatives to substances, then please tune in.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this enlightening conversation. I really enjoyed every moment. And as I said before, you have so much knowledge, and it's just a blessing talking to you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
What an amazing journey we had today. I hope you found as much inspiration and insight in this episode with Hanna Livengood as I did. Her perspectives on herbalism, altered state, and tackling sexual trauma are truly eye-opening. If you're interested in connecting with Hanna, you will find her contact info in the show notes down below. And guess what? We can keep this conversation going. Join us in the Soul Desire Podcast Facebook group to chat more about these topics and share your own thoughts. If you enjoyed the episode, leaving a review would be super helpful. It allows others to find and join our growing community. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for tuning in and being a part of our journey. Stay tuned for the next episode coming your way next Monday. Until then, keep nurturing your soul desires and spreading your light, my loves.